Hi everyone, Materim here again with another narrative battle. And this one has the Ogre Kingdoms versus the Dark Elves. They'll be fighting in an invasion uh, scenario from the Big Red Book at 2,500 points. The Bretonnian town of Felon was in ruins. Tokran Facecrusher had led his tribe here yesterday and demanded food from its terrified populace. Unfortunately for the people of Felon, their lord considered himself a hero and refused to pay tribute to what he called a foul-smelling monster. That lord was now within the village's smithy that Chog had converted into a giant oven, baking in his own armor, surrounded by piles of onions and potatoes stolen from the village's stock. This pleased the mighty tyrant. He had always had a weak spot for baked night, but he was beginning to feel the itching of boredom. Though his tribe had been eating well and earning a great profit in the mountains, they had not faced many true challenges. Even Felon had only a skeletal force of knights to protect it, and posed no real threat to the battle-hardened Whitetooth tribe. Tokran had lived long enough to know that if he did not seek true battle soon, the whispers of the Great Maw would be echoing in his mind, calling him to travel east into its great toothy depths. Like all of his kind, Tokran both respected and feared the Great Maw, and wished to keep its attentions from him. But to do that, he would have to fight, and the people of Bretonnia were too cowardly and obsessed with honor to give him the battle he desired. Tokran was stirred from his thoughts by the bellows of his scouts. They had pointed to the ocean and to several black-sailed ships headed towards the village. Tokran's smile widened as he recognized those ships. "Dark Elves," he said. He shouted to get his tribe's attention. "Whitetooth, prepare for battle. The Dark Elves come seeking human slaves. We shall show them what is here instead." As he saw the tribes gathered to defend the village that they had taken, Tokran allowed the thought of the coming battle to wash away his cares, and the voice of his vile god. Soon he would shed blood and feast on Dark Elves, and the crunching of their bones would silence the Great Maw, and keep his soul safe for one more day. Alright, and here is the board. Now, couple of things to note about this scenario. First of all, the board is played long ways. The edge of the board that is on the left hand of this picture is my opponent's deployment zone, the Dark Elves, and it represents the shore. He has to deploy within 12 inches of that edge. I got to deploy everywhere else. Now, the points for this scenario is for controlling one of each of the four quarters of the board. Also, the tower that is at the top, the wall section that is at the bottom, and there is another hill with a tower on it just off the screen to the right. Those areas, if you control them, also give you 1 point each. So there's a total of 7 points that can be claimed. The battle is going to go for 7 turns, and the Dark Elves, as the attackers, get to recycle any core unit that is destroyed or run off the board. They will be able to enter as per reinforcements the next turn on either that shore edge or the board edge of any quarter that the Dark Elves control at that time. So we'll go ahead and get into deployment, and hopefully that'll let you guys keep up. So starting on the Dark Elves, what would be my left, we have a unit of 5 Dark Riders with Musician and Herald. Behind them is a Cold One Chariot. Next to that is a Repeater Bolt Thrower. Next to that is a unit of 9 Cold One Knights with full command and the Banner of Swiftness. Next is a unit of 30 Black Ark Corsairs with full command. They have the Gleaming Pennant on them. And with them is Lokhir Fellheart, the special character who's serving as the Dark Elves General. Next to that is a unit of 11 Blackguard. They have full command as well, and the War Banner. And with them is the Master that is serving as Battle Standard Bearer. He has the Sword of Striking and the Armor of Fortune. Behind that, the Dragon is a stand-in for a Charybdis. That the Dark Elf player wanted to give a try to see if he's going to do his kit that way, or the Hydra, I think, is the other option there. Next to up front there is a unit of 6 harpies. Behind the unit of harpies is a unit of 11 dark shards. They just have musician and champion. And with them is his supreme sorceress, who is a level 4 to shadow, has a dispel scroll and the talisman of preservation. So on the ogre side, in the tower, I have a unit of 4 man-eaters with full command. The captain and the standard bearer for that unit have a brace of ogre pistols. The other 2 in the back just have great weapons. The unit has the razor standard and the rules poison attacks and swift stride. Hiding behind the tower so that none of the bolt throwers can shoot him to death is Chew the giant. So up front, you see that there are 2 units of single saber tusks. The 2 large units are units of ogre bulls, 8 men strong. The one at the bottom has Chog the Toothy, my level 4 slaughtermaster to the Great Maw. He has a dispel scroll and a charm shield. The top unit has Tokran Facecrusher, my tyrant, with the armor of silvered steel and the greedy fist. The unit in the center is a unit of 4 iron guts, and with them is Gat the Old, my battle standard bearer, and he has the dragonhide banner. Now, I didn't mention it earlier because you couldn't really see it, but now you see that little pyramid-shaped thing right next to the walls is an arcane ruin, and take note of where that is because it's going to become important as the battle rages. And here you see my 2 Mournfang, kitted out to have the 2-up armor save that you see there. And controlling the final important hill and tower is my Iron Blaster. So, by the rules of this scenario, the Dark Elves get to go first, and you can see he slid his Dark Riders over to the side there to try and make room for the chariot to go after the Sabertusk. However, the chariot failed its stupidity check and just ended up where it was right now. I think he actually did that sideways move as part of Vanguard, now that I think about it. His Dark Knights, or the Cold One Knights, move up just slightly, as do the Corsairs. He's playing kind of safe. He doesn't want to overextend himself and catch too many ogre charges in the face. Then on this side, you see he put his Blackguard, the Blackguard up front and kind of at an angle to give the Charybdis room to come in against the tower and try and go for the man-eaters. Now, the one thing I noticed here is that if that doesn't work out right, if this Sabertusk is not march blocked, I can get right up there next to his Reaper Bolt Thrower, and if I'm lucky, kill it next turn. So that was kind of a big open area he had there for me. The other thing I noticed is that this moved him dangerously far away from his BSB with that 11-man unit that has his Supreme Sorceress in it. So I'm thinking that may be a weakness on this flank that I can take advantage of too, with those man-eaters and their pistols. And then the Harpies over here flew around to the other side of the building to chaff up my giant. If I was doing this, I would probably angle them a little sharper so that if I do charge in with the giant and he overruns, I'll be more likely to go off the board. As is, this is pretty much just free points that he's serving up. Because if he flees with them, it's going to take them off the board as well. So it really wasn't a great placement there. So magic goes off and he manages to get Pit of Shades that lands directly on the building. And the Pit of Shades ends up killing the Man-Eater captain and one of the Man-Eaters with the great weapon in the back. So that was a big bit of points that just went poof via one spell. So the Dark Elf shooting didn't really accomplish anything, so we go on to Ogre turn 1. And Chew charges the Harpies, which fail their terror check, and they turn and run off the board. Which is pretty funny, because Chew then proceeded to roll 2 on 2d6 for his run, so he literally moved forward an inch from the failed charge. And sorry for the really blurry picture here, but this shows that, yeah, I was not March blocked, so I ended up getting my Saber-tooth, or my Saber-tusk right up next to his bolt thrower, and out of the line of the side of the Charybdis. So that's pretty much perfect for me right there. And in the center, I pretty much advanced my whole line except for Chog's unit, figuring that I don't want to give him an opportunity to kind of piece me out and deal with one unit at a time. I did put the Mournfang up further, hoping to draw off the Coldwind Cavalry. I thought maybe they could hold off with their armor. As you'll see in a minute, it's not really the smartest idea I've ever had. And I had forgotten that the Iron Blaster's range is only 36 inches, so I wanted him to come down a little bit. He's still large target and big enough where I can get line of sight pretty much where I want to get it, because I want to try and put a hole in that Charybdis. So remember earlier I told you to pay attention to where that Arcane Ruin was, because it was going to come into import, and it does. The Arcane Ruins allow you to roll 3 additional dice for channeling, but if you roll 3 6s, you miscast. And guess what Chog did while channeling? 3 6s. He then proceeded to roll a 3 for his miscast, kill 2 of the ogres that were in his group, and then have himself sucked up into the warp. So there goes all of my magic, and I didn't even get the benefit of getting a spell off because he miscast due to the channeling. So yeah. The only real bonus, I guess, is the fact that it didn't cause the unit to panic when they lost 25% of them from Chog exploding in a fiery belch. And to continue with my bad luck, the Iron Blaster misfired, and luckily I rolled a 6, so all he did was end up spinning around and facing the opposite direction. So we go into Dark Elves turn 2, and pretty much as I expected, the Cold Ones came slamming into the Mournfang. I still was feeling okay about this, because, I mean, they're big points. I was hoping the Mournfang would be able to hold them there with their armor, and those ogres could come slamming into the flank, but we'll see how that. And over here, my opponent again plays defensive, and I think it was ultimately a mistake. He ends up backing up a little bit with his Blackguard, brings the monster up to the side so that he'll essentially work on coming face to face with Chew. But he's not leaving himself much to see over there with Chew's 12 movement. I can sneak by him if I'm not march blocked. Not to mention that I can get out of the building with the man-eaters and kind of come in the side there. And beyond that, he turns his Dark Shards with his Sorcerer in there so that they can all take shots at the Saber-tusk that is threatening his Reaper Bolt Thrower. Over here, he fails another stupidity check with the Chariot, so he's stuck there. But in Magic, I shut him down, I think. Yeah, I think so. This is shooting. He ends up having to shoot the Bolt Thrower into the Saber-tusk and just ends its day. And I guess I didn't get any shots of it, but he only managed to do 1 wound to the Saber-tusk on the other Bolt Thrower after shooting all of the shots from that Dark Shard unit plus the Bolt Thrower at it. So that was very disturbing, and it's going to be a bad day for that Bolt Thrower. But we go into combat here, and my poor Mournfang didn't even stand a chance. Those Cold Ones just or the Knights rather on the back of the Cold Ones just absolutely destroyed them, and they ended up overrunning to where you see there. So, into Ogre turn 2, I've lost a lot here, and I need to start making it up hard, so I make a charge with the Ogres with Tokran in it into his Blackguard. I fail a charge with the Iron Guts into the same unit. And you can kind of see them just on the side there. And I do slam the Saber-tusk into the front of his bolt. And over here, the other ogres did fail a long bomb into, I think it was the fast cavias over there, and they ended up going up an inch, so they're technically sitting on that wall. We just couldn't actually get them to balance there. So that's just where they are for positioning. And over here, Chu was not march blocked, so I managed to get just far enough to be in the flank of his mage's unit, and out of the front line of vision of the Charybdis. So that was absolutely perfect. And even better, because the Charybdis has the long chariot base, I can actually see the back end of it from where he is. So if he doesn't move it, I've got a flank charge on the Charybdis as well. And then over here, the two man-eaters sneak out and go conga line style to be able to fit, so that they'll be able to come into the other flank of the Charybdis my next turn. And then over here, the Lead Belcher, or not Lead Belcher, the Iron Blaster turns around and starts making his way towards those mounted knights. I'm thinking that's about my only way to deal with them left on this side of the board. So with no magic, I ended up shooting the cold ones with the cannon. I think I killed one or two of them. We go into close combat, and I decide to handle the Saber Tusk against the Bolt Thrower first. The Bolt Thrower crew do not kill the Saber Tusk. The Saber Tusk kills one of them, and they break, so they die. I overrun here just to get out of the line of everything's fire, but because the bolt thrower was in 6 inches of the mage's bunker unit, they broke and were too far away from the BSB, or they panicked rather, were too far away from the BSB to reroll and end up literally a millimeter from the edge of the board there. And that is the 12 Dark Shards with his level 4 Sorceress. So I'm thinking that Saber Tusk is freaking amazing. And if I get lucky, I'll even up the magic. So over here, the ogres lose 1. I challenge out his champion with Tokran and just crush face on it. And the rest of the ogres murder, what is that, 5, 11, 12 of them. But they're stubborn, so they're not going anywhere. I'm going to have to kill them to a man. So we go into Dark Elf turn 3. He charges the, I think these are a little out of order, but he charges the Corsairs into the front of the Iron Guts, and he swift reforms his Cold One Knights as you can see them. And more importantly to me, he fails his rally check for his Supreme Sorceress's unit, and they run off the table. So that, yeah, that 130 some odd point Saber Tusk is totally putting in the work today, and I absolutely love him for it. So over in this fight, we get involved in a challenge. He ends up doing like 1 wound to my champion. I kill his. He does 1 wound to the unit, and then Lokhir just absolutely flubs doing his daring leap to attack my BSB. So I end up using the Dragonhide banner for the extra breath weapon, and we just beat the crap out of them, but they're stubborn, and they end up sticking. So yeah. Now again, sorry for the blurry picture, but I lose 1 more Ogre here out of Tokran's unit. Tokran gets into a challenge with his BSB, and they swap wounds, and then I just crush everything else in the unit. Luckily for him, though, they're still stubborn, and he's like stubborn on a 9 or 10 rerollable, so he's not going anywhere. So we go into Ogre turn 3, and since he didn't move the Charybdis, I did get the sandwich charges that I wanted with the Giant and the Man-Eaters. Now I'm not used to the Charybdis, so I was kind of unsure of what to expect here, but I do know that Giants are just awesome at murdering monsters if you can get close enough to have them hit one. And then here I did get the charge with the last remaining Ogre unit into the flank of the Corsairs. And, yeah, unless Lokhir pulls some crazy BS, those Ogres are just going to eat that unit. Unfortunately, it is a core unit, so he'll be able to respawn them at the start of next turn, somewhere on an edge that he controls. And then over here I move my Iron Blaster so that I'm just along the flank of that unit of uh, dark or of Cold One cavalry. So if I can land a ball right down them, I'm just going to decimate that unit. And I do just that. So the Cold Ones have like two guys left. Over here, the Charybdis ends up attacking my Man-Eaters, kills one of them, but then Chew gets the result where he takes 2d6 auto wounds with no armor save, and I did 10 wounds upside the back of his head. So he dies horribly, and this is where they turn around to face once that combat's done. And as you see, the Ogres here managed to kill the BSB and the rest of that unit, but they did lose one more Ogre in the meantime. I think Tokran has taken 2 wounds at this point. But they reformed to look over here at the Corsair unit. And without the BSB to let them reroll, the Corsair unit gets beaten down, broken, and runs. Both of my Ogre units give chase, no one catches, and with the way my units are stacked up there, he ends up running through the Ogre unit with Tokran, through the Ninja Man-Eater that's there, through the building, and pops out within millimeters of the other side. Now Lokhir is still alive, so my opponent is hoping to rally him. So we go into turn 4 for the Dark Elves, and because of how I pursued, the Cold One Chariot and the remaining 2 Cold One Knights are able to get just easy peasy charges into the back of this 6-man Ogre unit. So if he can roll half decent, I'm worried there. And then during remaining moves, my opponent does actually control this quarter of the board, so the not quarrelers, the black shards or whatever they're called, end up coming back on this table edge, hoping to either claim points with them or shoot some stuff down over there. But I've still got the Iron Blaster to deal with them, so I'm not all that concerned. So in shooting, he uses the Bolt Thrower to kill the dog, or the Saber-Tusk before it can kill him. And in combat, he ends up killing 2 of the Ogres in this unit, and doing 1 or 2 wounds to the other one, but he doesn't break my number of ranks, so I have Steadfast, and I'm within range of both the BSB and my general, so I easily stick and manage to spin around and face him. So Ogre turn 4 for movement was not a whole lot. My Man-Eater goes back in the building to claim that. I kind of fan out because I'm expecting the Chariot and the Dark Riders to maybe kill that unit this turn, so I want to kind of make a trap so they're going to end up running right into Chew, and the Iron Guts will hit them from the side. And my other Ogres just want to keep watch for new units. And that's pretty much what happens. He ends up breaking them and pursuing. The Chariot ends up clipping the flank of that Ogre unit. I didn't really watch my reform too well, so he ends up slamming into the side of them. And the 2 Dark Rider or Cold One Chariots end up within like 2 inches of Chew, so he's gonna stomp over there on my next turn and just eat face. So we go into Dark Elf turn 5. And he decides rather than letting me charge him, he's going to run the 2 Cold One Knights into Chew, hoping to get that Lance bonus and be able to sneak a few wounds. So on his turn, the Dark Riders, which actually I may have shot the Dark Riders last turn with the cannon and killed them. So on his turn, the Dark Riders and the Corsairs both come on the map and end up here. And during the last combat, 1 more Ogre dies, but I destroy the Chariot, and the 2 Knights do like 3 wounds to Chew, but he's okay. Or no, I'm sorry. Yeah, so now we go into Ogre turn 5, and of course I send my Ogres barreling into this unit of Corsairs that have just reappeared. I'm still thinking on the Ogre charge, I've got a pretty good chance of just beating face on them. And then over here, I guess Chew did kill one of the two knights, but I end up slamming the Iron Guts into the other one. And, well, frankly, that knight is not long for this world. Even if Chew doesn't kill him, he's got like two knights or two Iron Guts in my BSB upside the back of his head. And because at this point I realize I don't actually need the ninja to claim this tower because Chew's close enough, I sneak him out the back. I'm hoping to run up the back of the board and get him close enough to that back tower so I still control it because we've only got like 2 turns left to go and I want to be controlling as many pieces of those final points as I can. And over here I bring the Iron Blaster close enough to grape shot the Dark Shards there. So during shooting, I end up grape shotting a couple of them off the back. It wasn't very good. And you'll notice he's got a couple of wounds on him now, which was actually from those crossbowmen actually doing wounds last turn, I think. And so into combat, of course, the Iron Guts and Chew destroy that last Cold One rider, which I was not even the least bit concerned with. I turn Chew towards the Dark Riders that are going to be trying to sneak around, hoping that maybe they get march blocked and they can't move. Because if that's the case, I'll still have a good charge on them. If they're not march blocked, they're going to get away though. And over here, the combat goes so my way. The Corsairs ended up getting broken and ran off the table. I pursued them, and where that little white dot is where I'll be coming back next turn, because I did run off the board. So, Dark Elf turn 6, I believe this is, he decides to go ahead and charge the Dark Shards into the front of the Iron Blaster. I think this is kind of a desperation play. He needs the Iron Blaster dead so that he can claim this top table corner. And next turn I was going to charge into him anyway, so I think he's hoping that he'll be able to sneak in a few wounds and finish the Iron Blaster off. Over here, the Dark Riders were not march blocked, so they did run up over here. They can't see the ninja, but they're going to go after him. Or they might be able, maybe one or two of them can see him, but very little can see him. But regardless, they're going to go after him and hopefully kill him and claim the other table corner. So it's getting very close here. And here his Corsairs show back up one more time. So in combat here, I think he does sneak one more wound onto the Iron Blaster, but it's not enough. And the Iron Blaster ends up killing 3 or 4. Wasn't enough to reduce them, so they end up holding there, I believe. Or no, they break, and he ends up like right at the edge of the board. So, Ogre turn, my Ogres with my General come back on the board, and they just turn to stare down his Corsairs. Chew and the unit of Iron Guts move forward. Chew doesn't move forward as much as he could because I want him to stay close to the tower so I can claim that. Because I'm pretty sure when the ninja runs, the Dark Riders are going to go after him, and that'll leave Chew closest unit to the tower so I can get those points. And this over here shows me totally failing to kill his bolt thrower with my cannon. And you can see the one guy that's left from that corollary unit is running off to the edge of the board there. And my ninja goes running for the house but can't make it in. As you can see, he's taken 2 of his 3 wounds from shooting last turn. I guess I just didn't get a picture of it. So I'm just trying to get some sort of cover before they kill him. And again, these are out of order, but here is the final charge of the Ogres into his Corsairs. This is actually the last shot of the game. I end up breaking his Corsairs here, and they flee, but they don't go off the table. And so we end up having to count it there. It ended up very close, but I did control a couple more points, and so that will lead us into our narrative wrap-up. Someone will pay for this! the Krakenlord bellowed over the sound of the crashing waves around him. He had fled the battle along with some of his most trusted corsairs. He knew the small force he took to Falon were no match for the embedded ogre tribe they encountered. They had expected the weakling humans, and were outmatched with the forces of the ogres. His scouts had failed him. They told him that it was just a small fishing village ripe for the picking. Ogres. Why were they there? What brought them out of the mountains to this place? He thought to himself as the small boat pulled alongside his flagship, the Tower of Blood Dread. As his crew helped him back on board, he proceeded down into the bowels of the ship, looking for the captain that housed the leader of his scout team, Balandos. Lokhir kicked the door, and it splintered under the full anger of the Krakenlord. Blandros was in bed with one of the lesser sorceresses, and immediately rolled out, grabbing his dagger as he landed to his feet. The sorceress in his bed began to mumble, but was cut short by one of the red blades at her throat. The other, the Krakenlord, pointed at the bloodshade. "You have deceived me, Blandros. I hope that whatever you were paid to end my command was enough to protect what little is of your family when I get done with you." Lokhir stared through his kraken helm, waiting for the shade to make a move. "Captain, I did not deceive you. I gave you a prime source of slaves. I cannot help that you have grown weak and cannot round up a few human scum," Balandros said calmly, keeping a sharp eye on the captain and the remains of the door. "The human scum, as you say, lay dead at the feet of an ogre tribe. That tribe now occupies the town. That tribe cost us the profit from the slaves. That tribe cost you your life." Lokhir began to move closer, taking his eye off the sorceress for just a second, allowing her to finish her spell, which threw the room into darkness. This allowed the bloodshade to make his move, diving towards the Krakenlord with the other dagger he drew from his belt. But Lokhir knew how to fight, and he was ready. He stepped to the side and swung upward, catching Balandros with the smaller blade, and swung downward with the large red blade, removing the head of his scout. As the body hit the floor and the shade's head rolled past the Krakenlord's feet, he heard the sorceress speaking words to another spell. Taking a quick breath, he leapt into the air, landing right next to the witch, and slashing her twice across the chest and stomach. With a gurgle, the spell stopped, and the room was once again lit. He replaced the blades along his sides and left the room. He walked back up to the deck, seeking out his first mate. "Talardas, inform the Shades that they need to choose a new leader, and to clean up the Bloodshade's cabin. Set sail for Karandkar. Talandra needs to know the ogres have drawn Druchi blood. We need to return that tenfold." Alright, so it was a victory for the Ogre Kingdoms. We did manage to drive back the Dark Elf Armada from invading the shores of Bretonia, strangely enough. It was pretty close. I think at the end, the Dark Elves claimed 1 point. I claimed 3. There was a lot unclaimed because there was nobody close enough to them. But it was a good match. I definitely think my list was very strong for what the scenario was. I really wish I could have seen what kind of benefit Chog could have been. Losing him before I even got to cast my first spell to a miscast was kind of crazy. I'm also still not terribly impressed with the Man-Eaters. They're just so many points, and maybe I didn't use them right, but I'm still not impressed. I think the MVP was the Saber Tusk that destroyed the Reaper Bolt Thrower and panicked his Supreme Sorceress off the board. But coming in a close second is my Giant. I think Giants are just amazing against other monsters. You end up getting that 2d6 wounds. You don't even have to roll to hit or to wound. And I mean, it's just going to crush just about anything. So I was pretty happy with that. All in all, my opponent, I think to a certain degree, his list wasn't as good as it could be. for this scenario. I probably would have gone much more heavily into core and taken advantage of that replenishing core. Because I think when you're the attacker in this scenario, really what you should be doing is just defeating the enemy by death by 1,000 cuts. With the ogres, I don't get to replenish anything, so every ogre that dies, even if it takes an entire unit of his stuff to kill an ogre, that's still a win as long as it's a core unit. And he gets to replenish them. I probably would have gone very heavy into the fast cav, the Dark Riders, and as they started getting replenished, just run them up to the top of the board just to claim the various victory conditions. But all in all, it was interesting. I think we're still, as a group, feeling a little let down by the Blackguard. From what I understand, they're supposed to be kind of like the Phoenix Guard version of the Dark Elves, and yeah, uh, the Blackguard just aren't anywhere near as good as far as I can see. I don't see why you're paying that point premium for them, and they certainly. I mean, it may very well have helped if he had sort of gotten my units where he was throwing more than one unit into the ogres, but certainly the Blackguard, even 20 of them, is not going to handle an ogre charge, and I think that was definitely something that he is going to need to deal with in the future. But all in all, it was a fun game. This is obviously going to start a feud between the Dark Elves and the Ogres, so we'll kind of see where that's going. I'm feeling good to get the old Whitetooth back into the narrative, as they've been kind of ancillary characters up to this point, but we are going to, over the next few weeks, kind of change some more things about the narrative and see where the story takes us from here. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please feel free to comment, like the video below. If this is the first video you've seen, shame on you for starting in the middle, but feel free to check out all of the narrative videos, and subscribe below if you like what you see. So other than that, we got in one more narrative video, or one more narrative game that night, and I hope to have that up relatively shortly. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and we will go ahead and catch you next time.